All right, good people. Here we go. So I'm going to talk about the 3 to 5 things you need to track daily to guarantee daily happiness, right? And I could have worded this differently and said, hey, these are 3 things you need to track every day to guarantee, um, your happiness or your daily happiness. But you get the idea. Okay. So I want to kick this off by talking about some things that are not necessarily like easy to maybe identify right away, as far as the nature of the 25 blueprint and some aspects that are behind it. So for me, part of my journey, if you look back, and let me flip over to the actual 25 blueprint playbook itself so that this can make some sense to you. You'll notice that at the top of the section that talks about the 10 worlds is this section right here, 10 worlds of the human condition, that are based on the bottom being the world of hell, the top being the world of Buddhahood. Now, some of the reference material for the playbook, if you get to that page, talk about a book called Power versus Force. True story. There is a model that was on this particular page that walked you through the levels of consciousness, right, of the human experience. And that particular model is based on a diagram that was illustrated in the book Power versus Force, which is written by David. I always get the last name. So the last name always trips me up. It's David Hawkins. Wrote a book, that illustrated that the human consciousness could be mapped out all the way from a base level of shame, which is what the equivalent of hell would be, to a highest level of enlightenment. Okay. So I featured that particular diagram on one of my blogs years ago. And a summer before I was about to publish one of the editions of the 25 Blueprint, that publishing house reached out to me with a cease and desist letter. I was like, wait, look. And at that time, it was in a blog form. I was just like sharing a blog illustrating, the states of the human condition. But they didn't like that, right? Yeah, these things happen. And I was just about to, hit publish on the ebook version of the playbook. So anyway, all that to say, one of the things I realized was alongside with that was the fact that by the time I got that, that letter, I'd been studying Buddhism, right? And Buddhism at some point became very, very intriguing and interesting to me. And I stumbled upon in my studies this particular map, right, of the 10 worlds of the human condition. Now, there's a deep rabbit hole behind these 10 worlds of the human condition. So I'm just going to say for now, it's a very profound map of how we are as humans and where we find ourselves on any given day, and more specifically in any given moment of life, right? So in any given moment of life, you might find yourself feeling like you're in hell, and then 3 seconds later feel like you're in a state of hunger, or feeling like you're in a state of anger, or feeling like you're in a state of learning, right, in the world of learning. Okay, so all these states ultimately influence your experience of happiness. Now, along with this, as I studied, Buddhism and its implications on human suffering, and as well as human peace and human joy and happiness, I discovered that there are, in one particular tradition, 2 kinds of happiness. One state of happiness is referred to as absolute happiness. And then another state of happiness is referred to as relative happiness. Okay, absolute and relative. Okay, now it sounds very simple at the top of it, but relative happiness, I'll break it down. It refers to the fact that it's the kind of happiness that we all experience on any given day, right? Some people call it puppy love happiness, right? You get a new puppy, oh my God, the cute puppy is so cute, the puppy is so cute. And what happens? The puppy pees on your carpet that you just finished getting shampooed yesterday. Or the puppy poos, takes a dump on your carpet that you just shampooed yesterday. So the puppy's so cute too. Oh my God, I can't believe this puppy is pooing and peeing on my new shampooed rug carpet, right? So you relatively were in love with this puppy, and the puppy behaved in ways that you didn't anticipate or expect. And now you've got a different set of tears, right? From tears of joy to tears of like, what am I gonna do, right? About this mess. So on any given day, we are going through those two phases of happiness, made it to work on time. Yes. Then, the boss says, can I see you in my office for a minute? You're like, oh, Fushnikins, what did I do? What happened? Right? To the boss saying, we're going to promote you. You're like, yes. And then the boss says, yeah, but we need you to move to Ohio. You're like, oh. And then they say, well, we're going to pay for all your moving expenses and we're going to increase your income by, 35%. Yes. But we're also sending so-and-so who's going to be, heading up that office with you, which is somebody that you probably hate. No. See, right? Relative. It's all relative. So all that to say, relative happiness is what we are on every day. Okay. Absolute happiness is this happiness that cannot be messed with or touched or impeded on, because you just know that is your ultimate state of being. And regardless of what happens to you or around you, you are always able to identify with this absolute state of happiness. Sure, relatively, you might not be happy. You might not be thrilled about things happening, but absolute happiness, that state of absolute happiness, puts you in a position where when you look at whatever the circumstances are, there's this part of you that just trusts that you can turn that situation around for the greater good, for yourself and for the greater good of others, right? It's also a concept referred to as turning poison into medicine, right? So again, this is all part of my journey, my studies inside of Buddhism and studying it and applying it to my own life. And this is very, very critical. So now that we're clear on what kinds of happiness, at least as distinguished here, these two states, these two camps of happiness, you have to ask yourself, which do you prefer? Do you prefer the relative happiness dance? Or would you rather really truly be in a state of absolute happiness, right? I think I would prefer to be in a state of absolute happiness versus the relative happiness. So what does that look like, right? Well, first, sometimes we really want to be able to get our relative happiness situation and condition under control, which is where those 3 to 5 things that I mentioned to you are very come into play. So you're already familiar with the 5 kingdoms, right? Faith, fellowship, finances, feelings, and fitness. And we want to get to the part, if you're already taking your quiz, you already know the dance as far as evaluating yourself. So we want to get to this part where we really talk about our daily behavior. And again, the 25 Blueprint model is not supposed to be some absolute, here's where all the answers to happiness and a beautiful life live. No, it's supposed to be the training wheels, right? Like when you're riding a bike, you need those training wheels until you figure out what balance is on a bike for you, right? And then before you know it, you're like popping wheelies and doing tricks on the bike. So this is a guideline. This is a training wheel program that really puts you in a position to start looking at your life in a particular way that then gives you the muscle and freedom to then say, okay, well, this is how I want to operate. This is how I want to show up. Does that make sense? So the 5 kingdoms of daily performance are where you will find essentially these 3 to 5 things. And I use 3 because minimally I feel like for you to really feel like you're moving in the right direction, you really want to have at least 3 things that you're doing, 3 things that you can score yourself on, using a binary situation, like a 0 or a 1 to assess yourself. Again, when you're in the training wheel phase of like trying to figure out like what's not working right, okay? All right. So these daily performance tracking, right, in this section of your particular 25 Blueprint playbook, what you want to be looking at is some key areas. So whatever the area is, I think in this example, I used work, right? Kingdom, financial kingdom, career, business. It's related to work. And so I talked about just a few things that someone could use to identify whether or not they're on track with handling business, right? The way that they want to handle it. And so with this particular table that you see right here, this is like an illustration where from Sunday to Saturday, there were just some actions that I'd written that I could take, right, in this particular example. And you'll notice that on the days where no action is taken, there's a 0. On the days where an action is taken, there's a check. The check is equivalent to a 1. So I could have put 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 all throughout here, okay, in row 2, right, where you see I document and track results weekly, right? I could put the number 1, and wherever you see a check, I could put the number 1, right? So that being said, if there's a particular area that you just genuinely in your heart of hearts know and feel like, I could do better, right? Then you want to dial in and you want to identify what 3 to 5, in this case, I think I put 6 actions here. But you can make it 3 to 5 actions that you want to see yourself take in that area for you to be able to look in the mirror and say, okay, I feel like I'm growing and I'm expanding. In an Instagram live that I did on this particular subject, I shared about how, let's make sure that I'm still live here. I shared about how, I feel like before we go to rest at night, or at the end of it, a busy day, there's this part of us that's asking the question, how did I do? Did I make progress? Did I grow? Did I evolve? And if the answer to that question is like, no, or not really, or yes, but, right? And those are the kind of answers that we have for ourselves within ourselves. There's a sadness that starts to creep in, right? And that sadness, brings other emotions of discouragement, depression, and even in some cases despair, right? Because we feel like as the days go by, we're not getting any better. We're not improving. We're not becoming anything special, right? We're not living up to our potential. And that reminds me, actually, I wanted to pull up a particular image. Let me just pull this up of a particular quote that really spoke to me. And here's what it was, right? So this image, if you look at it, right? Okay. So take a look at this image. This is on an Instagram page. Okay. So we see this here where it says, when you're destined, when you know you're destined for greatness, your potential haunts you, it keeps you up at night. You won't feel complete until you manifest your higher purpose. That's really the name of the game here, right? When you are going through your daily tasks or list of things, this is really what's going on, right? I really feel like this quote really captures it. We all know that we got more in us. We all know that there's just something for us to do, something for us to, deliver on or follow through on. And when we're not doing that, we feel some type of way about it, right? So switching back to the blueprint image here, your assignment, right, is, if you need to, okay, by the time you see this, you may have like a digital version of this that you can use, is to start answering. Pick an area, whether it's your faith kingdom, your fellowship kingdom, your finances kingdom, your feelings kingdom, your fitness kingdom. What are the 3 to 5 actions that you want to take? Okay. And when you put those 3 to 5 actions, the way you want to evaluate yourself on a daily basis, if you really want to see something kind of move or shift and really take ownership of how happy you are, after you put your activities in, you just literally want to put in a 1 or a 0 in the cell, right? It'll be in like a Google sheet. Okay. And when you put in that 1, it'll give you a tally at the end, right? And that number is going to reflect whether you were, on top of it or not. I forgot to mention how these dashes are for days when an action isn't like what scheduled, right? Like you don't necessarily have the time to take action on that task on that day, or you just know that there's a day that you want to take that action. So that's why when you see it a dash on your Google Sheet, it doesn't count this as an actionable cell, right? It only looks at places where there's zeros and ones, and it calculates from there. That's why you see like 25% right here. Let me use my annotation tool here. So like if you look here, and so if you look at my annotation tool here, so the reason why this is 25% is because there's only 4 cells that are active for actions to be taken today, right? So 1 out of the 4 gives you that 25%, as opposed to 1 out of 6. Does that make sense? So when you see these dashes, that's why these are here. In your case, you can also do the same. Put a dash in there for the cells that you just know it's not relevant for you to take that action on that day. All right. But at the end of the day, the idea is for you to be able to quantify what actions you've taken or didn't take. All right. And as a result, you identify quickly, what's going on. And if you find yourself unhappy, there's something that just happens when you can look and be like, well, that explains why I'm in a crappy mood, right? But you can joke about it. You can laugh about it. You can kind of take a step back and say, all right, this makes sense. I can take ownership of the fact that I did not take action, right? And I will. Or if I don't, then I can't complain about why I'm so miserable, why I'm not happy, right? So these 3 to 5, setting yourself up in this way, puts you in a position to take full ownership of your happiness and your peace. Okay, and that's how you win that game. If you feel like okay, you kind of got the happiness thing down, and you don't necessarily need to quantify it or put it in a format like this, so you can kind of track your own behavior. That's fine, but at the very least, you can't say you don't have the tools, right? And that you haven't tried it and what to do. Okay. So that's essentially it. So if you're watching this, let's say inside of the 25 Blueprint Academy, you already know what assignments are, what the assignments are, as noted in the description section inside of the Academy. If you're seeing this somewhere else, for whatever reason, and you want to learn more about the 25 Blueprint, definitely send a message, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. And there's the social media handles and ways to reach out to be able to get more information and learn how to implement and apply this into your life. Okay, and if randomly you happen to have the actual 25 Blueprint in your hand, then these will take you to additional training, right? So students and those who are interested or inside of the 25 Blueprint, congrats on making the progress and changes so far that you've made. And what awaits next. We will be talking about the 3-week look ahead method. Man, that's one of my favorite trainings that I'm going to jump into in the next training. But in the meantime, take on this exercise if you need it. And if you have any questions about it, of course, you know how to reach me. All right. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. And I will talk to you guys soon. All right. Take care.